Hey, it's Rav. Welcome to the Everyday Investor, the hottest investment show in the world. That's right, I said it. I don't care who knows it. This show is designed to help us grow our money. You see, often the challenge is we take our precious time, we go to work, which is a great thing to have a job, we get a paycheck in order to eat. We take all of our time, we go to work, we get paid in order to provide. And like I say, that's a good thing, but imagine a life where money could make you money, you could work a little less if you wanted to, and then you had more time to spend with family, friends, engage in a purpose greater than yourself. Watch the Everyday Investor, learn from our guests in order to be able to grow your money. Remember, whenever you're offered any type of investment opportunity, you always want to ask 4 questions to start. Number 1, what's the return on my investment? It's very important. You got to know what return you're going to be making. 2, when do you get it along with the money you put in? 3, what's the minimum amount needed? And 4, what is the worst case scenario, the downside? Everyday Investor will continue in a moment. We got a super show lined up. We're going to be talking to my good friend. Wait for it. Coming up, we talk to veteran realtor brokerage teacher, trainer, Sam McDadi, and he's teaching us all about bidding wars.
You know, for example, if we're going to put a house on the market, we do all the, proactive steps behind the scenes, staging, pre-inspection. And a pre-inspection report is really important when you're trying to get a multiple offer.
The mortgage world has changed. Has your advice? Are you looking for a modern approach to your mortgage planning process? Advice tailored to your unique, ever-changing circumstances? Whether you're upsizing, downsizing, purchasing, or refinancing, the Kyle Ford Mortgage team works with individuals and companies to custom tailor the right mortgage product for you. Working with a wide selection of lenders, we're here to serve our clients and help them achieve their real estate and retirement goals. Contact the Kyle Ford Mortgage team today, Canada's mortgage choice.
Hey, it's Rav. Welcome back to Everyday Investor. Before we get nurtured by my good friend Sam McDadi, let's find out what's happening in the world of stocks with Omar Khan. Over to you, Omar.
Thanks, Rav. Omar Khan here, guys, with the weekly market recap. Markets continue to push to all-time highs. However, there's been a little bit of a pullback, and we're just slightly off those all-time highs. Now, what the markets are looking at for the end of the year is guidance into 2022. How much money are companies going to make? So far, the earnings reports that are coming out, companies are making significant amounts of money, a lot more than last year on a whole. However, the concern is, and this is why the markets are maybe not taking off as fast, is that interest rates and thus inflation are a little bit more than we initially thought. So if inflation doesn't come down, the central banks will have to increase rates, and that's not great for the economy. So that's why the market's a bit trepid. Let's see how the end of the year finishes off. Anyways, back over to you, Rav, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Omar. Always great to chat with you. Sam McDadi, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brother Rav?
It's been way too long, but hey, listen, at least I get to see you every time I watch the Raptors. You and your good buddy Nav Bhatia are always there, and I get to get a glimpse of you whenever they're taking free throws or whatever the case is. How fun is that? This has been, 2-3 years now you've been sitting courtside?
Yeah, this is my 3rd year, and it's been about 18 months, so it's a welcome change. I'm so excited to be back. It's just a lot of fun, so it's great to have the game back in our city.
Sam, a while ago, you were, top 5 year after year with Remax, and a while ago you decided just to open up Sam McDadi Real Estate, and you have several offices, and you're kind of the A to Z of real estate. If whether I want contractors, whether I want stagers, whether I want consultants, you do all that, but you also introduced, and we've done a couple of shows on it, this whole concept of an auction. We're going to talk about bidding wars here, but just explain really quickly about the auction. People know about the guy talking really fast. Do I hear $1, but we're talking about, you told me you do it with $5-10 million homes. Explain how that works to the viewers just for fun.
Well, several years ago, we tinkered with the auction world, and it was really interesting, and it was successful. And what we realized is that people oftentimes in that price bracket, 5-10 million plus, as a seller, it's a time money trade-off. So they don't necessarily want to wait 6 months to a year to unload their real estate assets. So if they can discount it 10, 20 points and they can move on in 36 days, they're open to that. And on the other side, the flip side, the buyer's looking for maybe a bit of a deal. So this was the perfect vehicle for us to marry the two. And it worked out really well. We've done, a handful of them, and you have to pick and choose your battles when you want to do it. But for the right property and application, it makes a lot of sense for both sides.
We're talking about bidding wars. We're talking about buyers trying to get a property and being outbid often. It's very interesting. Friends in Alberta who are realtors, for example, you can't really do it. If somebody lists their house at $1 million and somebody gives them an offer at $1 million, they pretty much have to accept that. Here in Ontario, we can list a property at $1 million. If they get $1.05 million, we can still say no. What are your thoughts about bidding wars here in Ontario? And if you were, the powers that to be, would you change it, or do you think it's fine the way it is? You just need to have people like Sam McDadi on your side.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, in the old days, bidding wars were few and far between. We didn't really set the stage for that unless it was a few select pockets, which were notoriously known to have low inventory. But in the last year and a half, it's been a totally different world, and it's really predicated by those supplies. So if supply is low, it's a good strategy for a seller to make sure you don't leave money on the table. So usually, for example, if we're going to put a house on the market, we do all the proactive steps behind the scenes, staging, pre-inspection. And a pre-inspection report is really important when you're trying to get a multiple offer because you want a firm deal. So if somebody's a little bit, has some reservation about going firm, you supply them an inspection report. But it works out really well for sellers because they leave nothing on the table, and it's basically a blind bid. And there's some discussions: is a blind bid really fair for a buyer because they don't know, maybe they're outbidding somebody else by $100,000. I mean, that's I guess a discussion for another time. But I think from a seller's perspective, it makes a lot of sense in this market in the right price range. And for our world, anything under $2 million, if there's not much product, it makes sense to run the multiple offer game. And it just worked, probably still, even though the market, we talked about a year and a half about this, Rav, and we thought that maybe the market was going to simmer and this might be just a short-term phenomena. But here we are today, and we're still doing multiple offers and having great success as well.
No, absolutely, Sam. So from the seller's perspective, somebody's watching this and they say, okay, how do I do this? So if we wanted to create a bidding war from the seller's perspective, you already mentioned a few things, but what are we doing? Like, what's number one? What is the seller doing? I mean, what's the difference between, because let's say the property's worth, I don't know, $1.2 million as market value. Some people I've seen put that price at $1, which, doesn't kind of make sense. Do you want to put it at $1? Do you want to put it just under? Do we want to put it at $9.99? Let's say it's worth $1.2 million. What's the thinking there, Sam? And then tell me the top 2, 3, 4 steps for the seller to think about.
Well, let's assume we want to achieve 1.2 plus. And the nice thing about the bidding war process from a seller perspective is you'll know the outcome within 1 week or less if you get a bully offer, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So the nice thing is traditionally, you're I would tell a seller, you've got to probably wait 30 to 60 days before we actually have a successful outcome in a normal market. In this market, in this environment, within 1 week, you're in and you're out if everything goes to plan. So that's a really nice, attribute for a seller, because a lot of times if you're on the market a week, it feels like 2 weeks. A month feels like 2 months because you're preparing the house every day. So it's a shorter timeline, which is great. If you're trying to achieve 1.2 plus, I wouldn't personally list it at $1 because a buyer doesn't really have a notion of where you want to be as an end number. So we want to list it below, and it's not inconceivable to get 200,000-300,000 over asking price. So 999 sounds like a reasonable place to be if you want to get 1.2. I would probably, I wouldn't go 600,000-700,000. It's not easy to get 600,000 over ask price, but I think 200,000 to 300,000 is fairly realistic and normal expectations. So I think that number would get foot traffic. The objective is to get people through the door. If you're too close to where you want to be, you're not going to achieve your objective. So if you're too low, then it's kind of a fuzzy number where they expect to be.
Okay, so the market value is $1.2 million. The advantage is we get to sell our house in a week or so. So if you were going to do that, Sam would list it at, just under $1 million plus, for example. And what about in terms of in that week, what days are we kind of looking at? Do we want to get a weekend in there? When would Sam list this?
The day doesn't matter so much, but you want to get a full weekend there in theory, including a weekend. And that's exactly a great point you made, Rob. I always want to make sure I get a weekend in there because sometimes people just don't have the availability to look during the weekdays. So if you go on the market Wednesday, I might review offers the following Tuesday, making sure we incorporate one full weekend.
Okay, so we're going to list it on Wednesday, but we're taking offers 6 days later, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Okay, now what's this thing about registering offers? What does that mean to register an offer? Like, can I just call you directly, or do I have to call the office and say I have an offer, and if so, why?
Two things. One, we obviously want to track the number of offers because every participant, every other agent wants to know the quantity of offers that might affect their strategy, how they move forward with their dollars, right? So if there's one offer or two offers, their strategy might be different. If there's, last night, one of our team members, Evelyn, there was 60 offers on a property she was competing against. So it just shows the market's still very active. So if I know there's 60, obviously I probably have one shot at it. They're not going to probably review, all the offers or send them back. Maybe they might say the top 3 or 5, but as a buyer agent, which we'll come to in a few minutes, you want to understand the strategy of the other agent and the seller so you can make good decisions with your buyer. So if they tell you it's a one-shot deal, you only have one kick at the can, you better put your best foot forward. And sometimes they'll say the top 3 will give you a second chance, but that's not a guarantee. So oftentimes with our buyers, we want to make sure they come in real strong, right?
Okay.
And so that they don't leave anything to chance.
Okay. So the seller is doing this. We're listing it. I want over 1.2. List on a Wednesday. Offers Tuesday, 7 p.m. What happens if I receive, as a seller now, I'm receiving what I used to call a bully offer or a preemptive offer, an offer that's before. So I've seen the house on Wednesday. I know there's going to be a bidding war. I'll give you, Sam, I'll give your client 1.3 million if you take it now. When Sam gets that as the listing agent for the seller, what do you do with that?
Oftentimes, and we're very open to looking at preemptive / bully offers, and it just depends on the strength of that offer. So we'll look at the offer first before we decide to run it. We'll make sure it's a number our sellers would consider and would entertain. If the answer is yes, so if we have 1.3, and let's assume this is 3 days later, and we've already had 30 or 40 showings, so we've had a pretty good random sampling, I would then tell my sellers, listen, I think it's worth running it, which then means we must call every agent who showed the property, let them know, listen, while we had intentions of reviewing offers Tuesday, 7 p.m., we have a strong preemptive offer we're looking to entertain. If you want to come to the party, we'll give you ample time, 2, 3, 4 hours work for you. So we want to make sure we give those folks an ample opportunity to come to the party if they want. And in addition to that, you must remove it from the MLS. There's no reference to multiple offers. Anybody else who's showing it in the upcoming days, they must be notified as well to give them a chance to come in early if they want to also, see the property. So it's really important to take those steps, not so much for the buyer, but from us as real estate professionals, we protect, the integrity of the business. And also, if you don't take the right steps, you might have another buyer who's waiting till Tuesday calling you, and it could be not a very pretty scene. But if they've been given notice that we're looking at offers earlier than anticipated, which many people are aware of that could play out, then it gives them a chance to sharpen their pencil, come to the party as well.
I've seen sometimes where it says no preemptive offers allowed on the listing. To me, that never made sense. What's the wisdom of that?
I don't agree with that. I mean, every single one of our properties, we allow for preemptive offers. So if you have a really strong material of preemptive, why wouldn't you look at it? You're just running it early. You're still giving you a chance to kind of come to the table with an offer as well. So to me, I didn't understand that. And I agree with you. Personally, that's not been our strategy.
So if I'm the buyer and you are with me, Sam, you're my buyer agent, and we see that on a listing, will we just ignore it and submit it anyways? Or you'll maybe call the other agent out of courtesy and say, give them, hey, I've got one here. I know you don't want one out of respect. I won't send it, but I'm just letting you know. Like, what would you do there?
Yeah, I would at least make the call. I mean, and we do make the call. Say, listen, I know you've said that there's no preemptives. My clients are really hot to trot. They've got another property. It might be in your client's best interest to rethink that. And then sometimes, probably 90% of the times, they're saying no. But I mean, it's worth at least a shot to have that dialogue. And so, but the interesting part is sometimes those buyers aren't going to wait. They may have another property, and and I think you're doing your seller potentially a disservice because you could have maybe tied up that property with a really good price. By employing that strategy, you might lose that opportunity. So I agree with you fully.
Okay, great. And then you talked about something about a home inspection. Even though we're talking about the seller, are you saying that it's a good idea for the seller to do a home inspection just so that it brings some comfort to the buyer?
If you're going to have success with the strategy, it must be a condition-free offer because you have this momentum. And if you have a conditional inspection, if I'm looking at offers, I put that quickly away, right? But I will have, if it's a really big number, I will have a dialogue with the agent saying, listen, you're in contention, but you have a condition. We're not prepared to look at any conditional offers. We have an inspection report. If you want to share that with your client, that helps you go firm, then great. Otherwise, we're going to do a offer 2 or 3. And interestingly, about a year ago, similar situation played out with 5 offers. One was conditional on inspection. The rest were clean. The conditional on inspection was much higher than the other ones. So we told the agent, listen, you're a front runner, but you need to remove that condition. Here's a report. It was great. I'll share it with my client. He called back 30 minutes later. My clients don't want to move forward because we don't like the report, which was fine because at least we knew where they stood. That was going to be the end outcome anyway. So we'd have lost all that traction momentum had we dealt with their offer and allowed them to have that condition. So we put that by the wayside, went to offer 2 and 3, negotiated a good, reasonable number, concluded that night. But if we didn't take that step, some sellers might say, oh, we'll take the, 30, 40, 50,000 more, we'll take our chances. But then if it doesn't work out, you've lost momentum, right? So in this case here, I think pre-inspection is paramount.
Listen, guys, we're talking to my good friend Sam McDadi, not just a handsome face, a world of knowledge when it comes to everything real estate. Today, we're talking about bidding wars. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
At Theta Training, our goal is to help you achieve financial freedom by teaching you the foundations of trading stock options. Join our growing community. Learn through our live-streamed weekend course, or develop your skills at your own pace online. Understand how the stock market works and how you can use the options market to earn additional income. Achieve financial freedom and live life on your terms. Let us help you build your empire.
Hey, it's Rav. Welcome back to Everyday Investor. Before we continue to learn about bidding wars with Sam McDadi, let's find out what's happening in the world of mortgages with Kyle Ford. Over to you, Kyle.
Are you looking to buy an investment property and you're not sure where to source the down payment from? You may be sitting on it. Many investors find the first source of their down payment for their first investment property from the equity in their current home. The number one objection I hear is, well, then my monthly payment is going to go up. A couple things. What if you restructured that debt to make sure that you weren't paying out of pocket for that additional cost? Or what if you were buying a quality cash flow property that produced enough rental income to pay for that additional borrowing costs? Now, this may not be for everybody, but this is an exceptional strategy that works really well for getting people into that first property, that first investment. If you're looking for a customized solution that would work for you, reach out to myself and the Kyle Ford Mortgage team. Thanks. Back to you, Rav.
Thanks, Kyle. Always great to hear from you. Sam, thanks so much for really teaching us. Every time I talk to you, and I've been in this industry for over 30 years, believe it or not, first house was with Mama Toor, 16 years old in Kingston, Ontario. But every time I talk to you, not only do you teach me about how to win at poker when you're winning, but you teach me about real estate. I'm fascinated. So before we get on to the buyer side of the bidding war and what are best practices, what about, so now I've won, I'm the seller, somebody has, won the bid. Now what happens? I mean, they have a deposit that they have to bring, and what amount should it be and when should they bring it? Talk to me a little bit about the deposit.
Deposit is such an important element and often overlooked. And it has to be a sizable deposit. And I think it's also time money trade-off. So if you have a long closing date, you want a bigger deposit because there's more things that can go wrong in this world. And we know the world's changing rapidly, right? So if somebody gives you a $500 deposit, I mean, the wind could blow the wrong way and they can walk out of it, and trying to take legal action is not so easy, right? So a sizable deposit, 5% plus, I think is really important. And really what I've seen, Rav, in the last few months is that sometimes people get caught up in that bidding war frenzy. They give you a nice, big, healthy purchase price, no conditions. And I've seen twice in the last month where they don't bring the deposit in. They don't want to bring it in. Oh no, we've changed our mind. We don't want to buy it. And now we've lost all momentum. So it's really important as a listing agent to make sure that they bring a bank draft as part of the process, because you want to know that if you accept their offer that, there's not going to be any issues the night after, or they wake up with buyer's remorse, right? The buyer also has to understand that if they don't bring a deposit in, it's still considered a firm and binding agreement. There's an argument whether it's consideration or not. I've talked to lawyers about this, especially the times where it's really, these bully offers or the multiple offer environments prevalent, 08, 09, and then now, actually 17. They say it's still, most lawyers will say it's still a legal binding agreement, but now, actually trying to get the money is not the easiest. So make sure from a seller perspective that you get a deposit, a sizable one, and a bank draft with the offer, because that's going to take priority over one that doesn't have a bank draft, because we've seen people go the wrong way after.
So you want to see the buyer have the bank draft along with the offer. Not tomorrow, because if we're taking offers Tuesday at 7, or is that a better reason why we should take offers Tuesday at 10 a.m.?
But Rob, what I would say on the listing, please, bank draft is required with the offer, right? So from the onset, they know if they're going to come to the party, they've got to come with some goods.
That's very, very interesting. I love that, because usually it says, people within 24 hours, and you're right though, the next day, if they're in a bidding war, maybe they change their mind. Maybe they, it was just emotional. So you're saying that buyer agent needs to honor that you as the listing agent said, have a bank draft along with the offer.
Yes, and sometimes we've done deals, Rav, on a Sunday night where physically getting a bank draft was really difficult because the banks aren't open. So we've told the other agent, because if they're presenting live, which nowadays they're not, it's more virtual, I'll tell them, go to the bank, give me $500, I've got consideration. I write $500 with a further increase of deposit the following business day of 100,000, whatever that number is. So we have something that is a glued deal. So there's no question mark if we actually have consideration or not.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So from the perspective of the buyer, you said one of your colleagues, somebody that works for Sam McDadi Real Estate. What was her name last night?
Evelyn.
So Evelyn was the buyer agent. She was going into, try to get the house for her buyer. 60 offers, 60. You got to hope for the best. Not much that you can do there. But what are some best practices when it comes from being the buyer, knowing that you are going to be engaged in a bidding war? What's number one?
Well, it's really interesting because I didn't get the details from Evelyn, but what she told me via an IG message was, I said, wow, that's crazy. There's 60 offers. And she said she wasn't even the highest offer, but she won, right? So sometimes the intangibles matter, right? So, you want to make sure you line up closing dates. So if you know the seller's preferred closing date, match that up. That's very important. And I would go one step further. If the seller is unsure about the date because they haven't bought, maybe in the offer insert a flexible closing date option so they can advance or postpone it. So now they know that if they don't find the right place and time, they can postpone the closing date or they can advance it. So flexibility on that front is an important element. A big deposit, just like we talked for the seller, is important. For the buyer, a bigger deposit shows seriousness. So we want a nice big deposit. If they're going to put it and they're going to buy the property anyway, why not put it on the table? It just makes the seller feel better about the whole process. Sometimes the deposit is the difference between a winning bid and a losing bid. They might offer the same amount of money. One's got a much more material deposit, so they'll win the offer, right? Because now, that deal's insulated. It's safe, right? So,
listen, I didn't even ask you. I just, and forgive me, how could somebody on the Sam McDadi team not get the deal? But I just assumed she didn't. So you're saying Evelyn last night with 60 offers didn't even have the highest price, but she won the deal because of everything that you've taught her over the years. Hey, we're in a bidding war. Be flexible. Make sure you have a big deposit. What else would she have done? Now, let's talk about it was clean. So how much preparation does the buyer have to have with their mortgage agent and with looking at this home inspection? And, because sometimes people do this as a buyer and they haven't even talked to their mortgage person. And by the way, do you have that in-house? Do you have somebody on your team that does mortgages?
We do, yes.
Yeah, so Evelyn would have made sure that they were qualified, but go with me on that. How do we get a clean offer going in as a buyer?
I think it's really important as well when the prices start going because really appraisals are very interesting. There's it's a new benchmark is being set every week, every month. So the prices are just moving in one direction, right? So we also have to be mindful of making sure the buyers are aware if the appraisal comes in low, they've got the financial capacity to make up the differential. So we did a deal a few days ago where they paid a little bit higher than most recent sales. So we made them aware that, listen, you might need an extra X dollars if the appraisal comes in lower, so that they're not blindsided. So we make them fully aware of what can be expected as the process ensues. So if there are challenges, they're prepared and fully aware. And I think that's really important because you don't want a buyer blindsided. We're trying as realtors to do the best for our clients and build a client for life relationship, which is predicated on honesty, good information, because they're reliant on us. So I think that's really important too. But I think, obviously price is an important element as well. So, I'm sure Evelyn gave a good number, but I believe all of the other intangibles were important. So maybe the other person had, not a very good closing date, small deposit. They might have gotten conditional. I don't even know. I'll get the details from Evelyn. But if they did with 60 offers, shame on them, because you've got to do your homework. But from a buyer perspective, what do we like to do? We don't want a client going firm without doing a pre-inspection. So we have an inspector on site, on staff. He'll go and visit the house the day before so that they're confident going firm, but not just with their eyes open. Because if they put a firm offer without actually having a pre-inspection done, it could be a big problem down the road. And then they're going to look at us and saying, you didn't really protect our interests. So we'll always make sure we have a pre-inspection. Our inspector will go visit the property with them, give them a walkthrough, make them aware of the key elements of the house, any issues that are cause for concern, so they can move forward confidently, knowing what they're up against. Because many times people put a firm offer and then they don't know what they're up against, and they're going to really be upset at their realtor. You don't want that, right? So,
listen, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of brokerages. Never have I ever seen a brokerage that has their in-house home inspector, has their own in-house contractor, their own in-house stager. Sam, again, people don't know, but you went to school in the States for business, a good school. You came back and you said, okay, I'm going to turn this real estate game into a business. And that's exactly what you've done. And I applaud you for that. So pre-inspection, even though the seller may already have done their own home inspection from a reputable company, the buyer can see it. You still want to do this?
I still want my sets of, my folks looking at it, validating. They can look at the report, walk them through it, just give them an educational discussion about the house. It's important for us.
Love it, love it. Okay, we've got about a minute left. One thing that you said was kind of scary from a buyer perspective. So the listing agent, the seller agent listed on Wednesday, offers not till Tuesday. But we talked about preemptive offers, bully wars. Sometimes agents say to their client, buyer agents, oh, don't worry about it. We can go see this on Sunday, even though it's listed on a Wednesday. And so what I would think is, no, go see that property as soon as possible, because if somebody puts a preemptive offer, you might not get a chance to go see it later. Is that kind of what you were saying?
100%, because if you assume you're going to wait till Sunday, now you're going to get a little heads up, but it may not be enough time. So if I get a bully offer today, and we've got to place all the calls, so agents have showed it and will be showing it. And the problem is, if they haven't booked it, it's dangerous, because we'll never know those people who are thinking about booking it. If they've booked it, at least they're on our radar, so we can call them, say, listen, offers are reviewed in a couple hours. That probably is enough time for them to get their client out and make a decision. So I agree with you 100%, Rob. If you have a property you're interested in, see it right away. At least if a preemptive offer comes in, you've seen the property, you can decide if you want to come to the party or not. If you're waiting till Sunday and you get the call on a Tuesday, you may not be able to scramble quick enough to get this all together, and even getting a bank draft, taking all the right steps. So I think, yes, you want to see it ASAP, regardless of the offering date, because that could get moved up quickly.
Love it, Sam. Love it. Listen, time's up when we're having fun. I thank you when I can get you on the show here. It's been a long time since we've watched the UFC, since we've played cards, since I've got to sit with you at the game. I'm going to come soon. But Sam, really, I really appreciate your wisdom, honestly, in all areas of life. You're a health nut. You take care of brain health, but you've really done a great job with the real estate business. So much love to you, and thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. I look forward to seeing you at the Raptors game soon, and I appreciate you having me on the show as well.
Yes, and thank you guys for watching. Without you, we would not have a show. Make sure you tune in next week, same place, same time. Honey, love you. I'll be home soon.